Hello and welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur Podcast. Today I have the complete honor of having with me Debbie Wosskow, the co-founder of AllBright, the leading women's network, and we are here in the AllBright Mayfair Club for our podcast. So thank you, Debbie, for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I just want to jump right in. There are so many things I want to ask you about and so much value that I know you have to share with our listeners. So tell us a bit about how you got started in business. There's this great little tidbit out there about you having a scrunchie business.
Yes, true. I try to explain this to my children, but in the context that it was the 1980s.
And they're coming back in now.
So it's interesting when you look back on the career that you've had over the last 25 years, as it is for me now, and wonder quite why or where you've ended up. And how you got there. I think for me, I'm from a family of entrepreneurs. I grew up with business being discussed around the breakfast table. And in particular, the women in my family were and are entrepreneurs. They wouldn't have described themselves as such, because that's quite a fancy word, but they ran their own businesses. My grandmother ran a chain of sweet shops and off licenses, and my formative memories of being young with my grandma, who never learned how to reverse her armoured vehicle that she drove around blocking money off at the bank.
Wow.
And that was sort of real life. And my mum ran a printing business, and in my extended family, nobody had a job. Nobody went to work for somebody else. Everybody had their own venture, hustle, side hustle, as we would sort of call it now. And I'm from an immigrant family who arrived in the UK and sort of built their way through selling things on the markets. And so that felt very normal. The other thing that was important for me culturally in terms of my family was sort of academic excellence. That was sort of mandatory. And so for me, my first foray into what any of that meant was when I was at school. I did something called Young Enterprise, which is still going, and I think it's an amazing thing for kids to be involved with. My own children have had a lot of exposure to business because they've got a slightly unusual life with mum, me. But indeed, we set up in 1980, whenever it was, our scrunchie business, and sold scrunchies to Asda and all that sort of stuff.
Wow.
So, and it was real life, and you learn a lot as a teenager about, and again, you wouldn't have framed it as this, but how to build a business plan, how to work collaboratively with the team, what did leadership mean, what did economics mean, what did revenue mean, what did costs mean, in a very real sense. So that's sort of where it all began.
That was the big on-the-job training you got.
Exactly,
So what happened? How did
the scrunchies?
Scrunchies
did well.
Yeah.
And I actually went on to the national finals of Young Enterprise, and I won. So I was the sort of winner of Young Enterprise in 1980. God, when would it have been? How old am I? 1988.
Wow.
So yes,
Fantastic. So what happened after that? I mean, so you obviously went to university. You said academic excellence was a key tenet of your family's values. And you studied something non-business related.
Yes, absolutely. I studied philosophy and theology at Oxford, which I loved. And still love in lots of ways. It sounds like quite a random thing or leap to make from studying philosophy to business, but actually I think there are a few things that I learned at Oxford that have been very useful for me in my later life. The first was how to read quickly. Some of my key life skills and a lot of volume. The second is how to summarise quite complex arguments into something that's simple, and that's a really important tool in business. And the third was how to present, because what Oxford does brilliantly is offer young kids who don't know anything about anything the opportunity to form their own opinion and argue a case. And so I think those three things were very important, and philosophy is very logical and mathematical in terms of the way it's taught and studied, and I still use a lot of that stuff that I learned in my late teens about decision trees, when I'm really struggling about how to make a decision around something. So whilst it wasn't business, Oxford in those days didn't offer you anything that was about business, apart from maybe PP at a stretch. But I loved it, and I would really recommend studying whatever you want to study, but actually sort of being in the world as I was, and I did things like the student paper, and I put on a fashion show to raise money. And, I did things that were to do with business, and I did work experience in the city, and I did all that sort of stuff. But I loved and still love reading for pleasure, using other parts of my brain that don't nearly work as well as they did when I was 20.
Yeah.
But you know, I like that. I think it's important.
I love that. And I love this idea of what you just shared of taking inspiration and lessons from varying aspects of, you know, the world of knowledge and what you learn in university, because, you know, so often we can apply these lessons in other areas and in business. And as you said, some of those things, distilling complex problems, being able to get through volumes of dense information, are key business skills. And I think we need more thinkers as well as just sort of technicians, you know, and I think that's an important message to get out there.
Yeah.
So after university, you know, you went on, and I guess sort of fast forward a little bit perhaps to what some of our listeners will have already known about is your first big business, Love Home Swap.
Yes.
And talk us through some of the ups and downs of that experience.
You know, it was quite a ride. It was a 5-year journey from idea to exit.
Yeah.
There are lots of different types of entrepreneurs. I think that's an important point to make. And I am very simple in my approach to the things that get me out of bed in the morning, which is the businesses that I've set up, and AllBright where we're sitting today is a real manifestation of that. I really need to be able to relate to the product and the consumer in my own life. And the different businesses that I've founded have reflected different times in my life, I suppose. And for Love Home Swap, I had 2 very young children. I went on holiday, one was 2, one was 3 months, to an expensive hotel in the Caribbean, where I did a lot of sitting in quite a small room, watching TV with the sound of feeding one whilst the other was asleep, eating room service. It's not very satisfactory.
Yeah.
Hotels don't really work when you've got young kids. And on the flight on the way home, I watched the film The Holiday, for those of you who have seen it, which is the ultimate home swap movie, and thought, does that even exist? Because actually at the time, that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to stay in a home like my own, to somewhere else. And also, I wanted to swap my life to some extent, because life with very small children is a real grind.
Intense, yes. And
it felt like there would be a product, a community, a female audience of a like-minded group of primarily women, because Love Home Swap is a 90% female audience, who would want to swap their home with another home, another family, in another part of the world. A bit like a modern day timeshare. And that was the business that we built over the next 5 years before selling the business in the summer of 2017 to Wyndham, the hotel group, for 53 million, and that makes it sound easy peasy, right? And it's never easy peasy, you know. And I think it's a really important thing for entrepreneurs to talk about, for female entrepreneurs to talk about, which is at various moments within that journey, it felt impossible, depressing, boring, frustrating, like we were never going to get anywhere. I think it's all about what happens when you feel like you want to give up, but you don't. And there are some fantastic quotes to steal from other people on this topic of grit, which is, you know, a really important point for me, which is that for every overnight success, you have 5 or 10 years of the entrepreneur behind the scenes chewing on glass, wanting to give up, and it can often feel like that. And also James Dyson, latest book, which is a really interesting read, talking about that inflection point where you feel like you want to give up, you're just done, and you don't, and that's generally a turning point. It's very easy to see with hindsight, but Love Home Swap was all of those things, and then it was many wonderful things, which was an amazing team. I worked with my brother, Ben, who I now work with again at AllBright, and that's an amazing privilege, and he's just a great guy, and that was really important. Love Home Swap was like a family in lots of ways. We sold to a great business, the team are still there, my brother took over as CEO, and it became part of what then was known as the sharing economy. Not when we launched the business, but and that gave me a really interesting platform. I wrote the Wosskow report, which is the independent government report on the sharing economy. I was the chair of Sharing Economy UK, which is the industry association tasked with self-regulation. I'm a politics geek, so I loved all of that, and I still love a lot of that, and having had the privilege to work on, think about how business and politics can intersect, particularly around this topic of new ways of thinking about the assets that we own and the skills that we have. So it was a brilliant thing to do, and it was something, quite a lot of something.
Yeah.
Shareholders were happy, team was happy, everyone was happy, and then sort of on to the next thing.
Wow. And I'm so pleased that you talked about that roller coaster ride, because I think, as you say, you know, we often only see the results of the success, and the stories we hear about are the successes. We don't hear that 10 years of backstory of grind, chewing on glass, and I think a lot of would-be entrepreneurs don't really give themselves aren't prepared enough for the downtimes. They only see the highs and the successes, and that's not how it works.
It can be very dark, very lonely. You know, very real.
Yeah.
I had 2 small children. I was a single mum by that stage. I was at a stage in my life where I had a lot on, and it is a choice, and it's an incredible privilege.
Yeah.
But it's not an easy choice, and I think many people, women, founders, are not prepared or well prepared for how difficult, dark, emotionally draining, exhausting, and everything else it can be. And it's all about your grit, your resilience, your support network. You know, a big part of that is why you're AllBright, because that's often harder for women. Yeah. But there is a real point around be prepared for what's to come.
So what did you do to prepare yourself for that? Yeah, that darkness and some of the tougher times of your entrepreneurial experience.
You know, I wouldn't have thought about it in the formal way that I think about it now, because it's so much part of what we're trying to build with AllBright. But I think I was very lucky to pick up some awesome women on the journey who became my sisterhood to use sort of AllBright parlance. But it wasn't a deliberate thing. But it is a very powerful thing when you meet another female founder of a business that's raised capital, that's often juggling family, that, you know, and we've got our tribe of Alex de Pledge and Sarah Wood and people that I've been very lucky, Martha Lane Fox, to meet over the years, Tamara Lohan, Anna, my co-founder in AllBright. So that helps. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's only on gender lines. There are lots of men in my club too, not least my brother. Yeah. But there is something different about the things that we think about, how we react, what we are managing at any one time, that makes that connection with women feel very powerful. Yeah. I think, you know, people talk a lot about self-care. It's what does that mean for you? So I am very routine driven, I always have been. I'm a very early riser. I need to hit the punch bag every day. I always wanted to be a yoga person, I'm not. I need to, you know, and I need to look after myself, eat well, and not, you know, so whatever your version of that is, I think you have to make time for other stuff. That's really hard. Whatever it is that gives you energy, that's a lot of the way that we talk and think about what we're trying to build at AllBright, and knowing myself a lot better at age 45 to age 25 is part of it is what gives you energy and ensuring that you're spending more time on that stuff than you're not, and that you're not compromising on things. So I love going to the theatre. I was on the board of the Hampstead Theatre for a long time. I'm on the board of the Women's Prize for Fiction. I love fiction, literature. Okay, so build that into your life. You do have choices. Yeah. And then figure out your rhythm with your kids. I mean, my kids are 11 and 9 now. I've also inherited a 5-year-old from my partner. We're very busy. I think a lot of the way that women feel about work and life is driven by how much time they're getting with their kids and the right sort of time, and recognising that for every stage there's a new stage, right? So what they need at 11 is completely different to what they need at 1, and vice versa, and just trying to combine routine, which many entrepreneurs have, and there's a lot of sort of routine porn, isn't there, around. I wake up and I meditate at 5 in the morning and I have a green juice and I do whatever your version of it is, but having enough flex built into it to realise that your life will change, you've got to change with it.
Well, and so much of what you said there points to a strong degree of both self-reflection and self-awareness. And as you said, sort of in hindsight, a lot of things have become clear about your preferences, what you're passionate about, and building that into your life. I mean, was there ever a point where you actually sat down and made it a conscious thing, like, let me sit down and list, what are the things that are important to me, what, and thought very in a structured way about, your strengths, your passions, or was it something that you just sort of paid attention to in the back of your mind and have built up over, over the course of your life to realizing what it is for you?
It's quite structured for me. So I have a book that I write in on New Year's Eve of every year, and I do a sort of review halfway through the year, which are my goals and objectives for the year, and things to do more of and things to do less if I've done it for years. And I would really recommend doing that. It doesn't take very long, but it's a real moment of anchoring and being honest with yourself. So I think what gets written gets done, definitely for me. So I have a sort of record. I think you have to do the hard yards on yourself, and things happen in your life, whether it's divorce or motherhood or business is working, business is not working. I think it's important to have an internal dialogue and to get help and support with that, whether that's with a coach or a therapist. I've done all of those things. And also to really invest in honesty in your relationships and surround you, in particular your business relationships, which can be the thing that we invest least in. So really working with your business partner, and I've been very lucky with Anna, also my brother, to be honest about saying, I want to do more of this and less of that, or I'm not very good at that, but I'm good at this. And with experience comes a real sense of where you can properly move the needle and where you can't.
Yeah, and I love that element of just honesty, and you guys talk about it quite a bit in your book, Believe, Build, Become, about having a rhino hide, and that there are no bruised egos. Everyone's just being honest and trying to do the best they can, and you have to have a thick skin. It's not personal, but you have to be able to work with people who you can trust to tell you the truth, regardless of whether you want to hear it or not. And how did you and Anna, sort of develop that between you? Because you became friends and met, what was it, 2015 or when you were introduced?
2015.
And so clearly there was a chemistry there, but how did you guys work on that relationship and that honesty?
The rhino hide thing is, if I could go back to my 25-year-old self, so 20 years ago I set up my first business, that's the thing that's the hardest thing when you're young, because experience is not weathered you. And also because when you're young, you're playing a part, right? You're playing the part of boss, because you don't know what the hell you're doing, and you're a kid, and everyone your employee's older than you, and how do you take things very personally. And I think one of the fantastic things about aging is that you just take things less personally. But it is hard. I mean, this business, AllBright, is a very public business. Not everyone likes us. People are very vocal about saying they don't like us. Never read the comments under one of our pieces when we're featured in the Daily Mail or anywhere. But it just, and suddenly this business has been fascinating because you put yourself in a position where people can have a vision and a version of how they perceive your stance on anything, from feminism to your dresses. So that I think you need to sort of rhino hide around. But AJ and I, we've been very blessed, and it's the same relationship I have with my brother, that we're just easy. We never fall out. We don't, both of us hate that. Actually, we're tough. And we're very tough externally and tough negotiators and tough, but we don't like conflict with one another. That's one. So, and I think that's a really important point in relationships, in any relationship, having similar temperaments. So we're sort of easy temperament, whilst being very, very sort of point to, go, and very positive. So the thing that we have in common, additionally, is we've got very, very short memories. So we can't remember how crap something was 2 days before something we've done. That's quite a good thing. I think we also, thirdly, have a very clear division of labour in terms of, I'm good at this, she's good at that, I've done this before, she's done that before, and a massive respect and admiration for one another, genuinely. She's fantastic, she's brilliant at some things I'm terrible at, and she knows about things I don't know about, and vice versa. So you've got to look for that real mutual respect and admiration, because you will be tested. I mean, and again, AllBright is a business that's terribly glossy from the outside. Whether it's the velvet chairs or the thing or the membership or the scale, we've raised a lot of capital very quickly, but it's that hard. I think you've got to have, like any relationship, that stability, honesty and communication shared vision, values, shared temperament,
Yeah.
but respect. Like total respect,
Yeah.
and be good at different things.
Yeah.
Where I've seen things not work, and in my own life, is you should not partner with the same person as you, because you're just going to tread on each other's toes, right?
Yeah.
So be really clear about who does what, how that works.
That's such great advice, because I think, especially for a lot of founders, when they're starting to build a team, they almost mirror and they say, "Oh, I love this person," and it's usually because they're very similar to you. But you don't want a clone. You want someone who is going to challenge while respect who you are and amplify your strengths and help make up for any things that you might be less strong in.
I think you need a shared approach to work. Anna and I work all the time, and we find it really fun. We find it really fun to be on WhatsApp at 11. I know you're not meant to say that you do this. We won't tell us to sleep hygiene, but on WhatsApp at 11:30, figuring out that we're absolutely aligned in that. And I think that point on work, not just work ethic, but how you feel about work, the opportunity, what you're prepared to give. You need to be aligned on that. Otherwise, you can end up feeling frustrated with the other person, and we just have that very easy.
That's fantastic. And with the AllBright, I mean, this, I guess, over time, you and Anna started talking about different ideas. How did you guys decide on this, what the offering is you currently provide, and how did you know, or at what point did you know that you were really onto something?
Well, there are a few different things. Where we started was we knew the audience. And why did we know the audience? Because we were the audience. And we spent years selling to the audience. So in a funny sort of way, even though our backgrounds are very different, because AJ went from, the elegant corner office, and I've done scrappy stuff my whole life, we'd always develop products and services for a female market. An audience of what we would describe as smart-minded women, and we lived and breathed that because that was our world. So we sort of started from that point, and from this observation that women were not at the table, like we really are, and the data's just embarrassing. Whether it's women raising capital, women investing capital, women in C-suite positions in corporates, and the whole nine yards. So we began from, there's a business targeting those women with something that helps them to build network skills and confidence, because that's our observation on what holds women back. And so the business just came very organically out of those authentic observations about the market and the opportunity, and then it developed into, we think that physical space can stand for something, stand for system it works. And a digital platform can bring that experience of being a member of a club to an online community. We actually got there pretty quick. And then it's just a case of executing on that. And of course we endlessly finesse the what. There are a lot of moving parts in this business because you are accidentally in the hospitality industry, which we didn't really think about at the beginning. Plus you're scaling a digital platform, plus you're dealing with an incredible, inspiring, humbling, brilliant female audience who are very high maintenance. So there's a lot of that. Plus it went global straight away, and within a year we had 2 sites in London, one of which we're in today, one in Los Angeles, New York. It's a lot. And a big requirement on us as founders, on the culture that we create, on genuinely being honest about what gives us energy and what plays to our strengths. It's full on. And both of us have got kids and life and all the rest of it. So, and there's a lot of travel. So it's been a lot of those things, but what it has always been is very clear on what we believe is a combination of purpose and profit, that by creating these spaces for women that allow them to engage, connect, build a sisterhood, skill up, we are not only on the journey of building $1 billion business, but we are also making a difference to women's lives, and that's very cool.
And I love the combination that you just outlined there of profit and purpose, because it shouldn't have to be a trade-off. And I think too often it's the companies and organizations that have a strong purpose that don't focus enough on the profit. And actually we need more good companies having more of the wealth and more of the profit and market share, because they're doing good.
I think so. I mean, what's really important for us, the AllBright isn't a charity. We believe very bluntly that women need to get very rich and redeploy their capital in backing other women, because that's what men have done for years. It's really important that people see that, think that, believe that. Women don't talk about money, we talk about money all the time. We talk about the business, what it does, what it's worth, the capital we've raised, the valuation. We need to do that more, because women still find that really hard.
Well, that's a perfect segue, because I do want to talk to you about the money stuff.
Yes.
And so, again, as you alluded to, women are notoriously either uncomfortable around numbers or just don't feel prepared around them. You guys talk about it quite a lot in your book as well, about just being able to read P&Ls and financial statements. How did you build up your own financial savvy? Was it on the job training, or did you, again, invest in yourself and getting special skills to make you feel comfortable around the numbers and the financials?
My first job out of university was as a management consultant, and it was one of those typical graduate jobs, which is very similar to being in banking or accounting. And it was a great job to do for a couple of years, because as a philosophy and theology graduate, I was pretty numerate, but I was by no means an accountant. I'd never had to really sit with financial statements, and I was sent on how to read a P&L and balance sheet courses that were invaluable. So that transition from being a sort of geeky academic graduate to being somebody that was actually workplace ready was important. But the real learning for me, my first business manager, which was my comms and marketing agency that I set up at 25, I sold it in 2007. That's real life cash flow management, and that is the biggest lesson if I could teach any entrepreneur. It sounds very simple, really, which is how much money are you spending, how much money are you making, how much money have you got in the bank, and that very sort of granular sense of what does it cost us to acquire a customer, how do we monetize that customer, how much runway have we got. You really live it, and in a way, as a first business, a business which is a consultancy business where it's all about leveraging human capital for fees, is a very good lesson in that, because you're always 2 client losses away from greatness, and two client wins away from greatness and 2 client losses away from disaster. So you live in the real world, and so then you just know, and Anna in a different way, because when she went through the ranks at Hearst, head of digital, CMO, COO, CEO, and effectively that job was running 22 different businesses. So we're both very, very quick on, is this making money or not, and is it ever going to make money? And we're quick, back to the short memory point, to ditch the things that aren't. And I think a lot of founders are very invested in the idea. We're very invested in the market, the audience, the opportunity. But we're very, very up for, maybe sometimes too much, flexing what it is, and that really matters. And I think that's something that you just learn over time, that you can't be precious about ideas. Performance is everything.
And that's a great insight right there about being committed to the opportunity, but not necessarily the specific how, and having this flexible approach. I mean, how do you know, or how have you developed your gut around what is, when it's time to pivot, or when it's time to just stick with plan A and, just wait for the 2 clients to get into that sort of the magic promised land. Sort of when do you stick to your guns, and when do you take a slightly different route?
Well, we do go a lot on gut. Your gut, I think, is just a manifestation of your experience plus your instinct. So, of course, that matters. And in another part of my life, because I'm a prolific angel investor, I'm very quick to go yes, no, yes, no, yes, no on things, or to say this is the thing that matters. Aside from gut, the experience point is you just get much more experience on when something's going to make money or not. And also, because so much of what we do is digital, on that relationship between the cost of customer acquisition and the ability to monetize it. So I think that's just through years of it not quite working in different ways. I think just be around business as much as you can. I mean, the beauty of AllBright is that we're surrounded by awesome women, and learning from other people's experiences just never stop. And some of the formats that we've created at AllBright, like the Female Founders Pitch event that we run every month across all of the clubs, is a real moment to sit back and listen to, well, what works in general terms, what works.
Yeah. I love that. And also, like you said, it's not just a gut. You back it up with this body of experience, this body of knowledge, and you're still deeply immersed in that. And I think that's the beauty of a place like AllBright, is that you guys will always be in touch with your customer, but also with lots of different businesses. It's a great place to be, and I mean, there is something magical about a physical shared space that you guys are creating. So I love that idea of mixing the gut with immersing yourself in the new businesses that are coming out. Shifting focus a little bit, if we can, and going back to something you touched on earlier about the negativity. We were talking a bit about the rhino hide and some of the negative comments and the negative reactions you guys have gotten with the work you're doing here. Sort of, let's lighten it up a little bit. What were some of the crazier sort of comments? Do you even remember? I mean, again, you guys talk in the book a bit about having a dark sense of humor about it. But are there some that really just stick out and you think, gosh, who says that?
I mean, crazy stuff happens every day. I think for me, the stuff that always really resonates is when women have met at the AllBright, because that's sort of the point. And in fact, we run a series on our magazine called We Met at the AllBright. So the thing that we love are the stories of women whose lives have been changed, as ours were changed by meeting one another. Yeah. And that was a serendipitous moment. What we want to happen in the clubs is organised serendipity and in the online platform happening all day, every day. So it's those real life stories that really stick. And additionally, when female founders get funded because of pitching at the pitch event, or when women's lives are practically impacted in terms of their ability to have the career that they want, that's kind of the point. Those are the stories that you remember.
Oh. And for you guys moving forward with AllBright, so you're starting, or you're launching a new club in New York this autumn, is that right?
Yeah.
What's next for the AllBright? I mean, what's the longer term vision?
Yeah, so we're figuring out where next. We will raise another capital round later on this year, and that takes time, energy, effort, so we're kind of gearing up for that. We're figuring out what we do in Asia, where we've launched the AllBright Academy and AllBright Connect, Asia and Australia. There's a very long list of places that AllBright can go. Alongside that, big area of focus now is building out the digital and content platform, looking at some of the things that we see happening in the club that we want to bring to the digital community, like finding jobs, finding mentors. So, there's an endless amount of stuff you can do. And that's the thing with this business, is, as ever, it's about focus. Because you could do anything now that we've got this audience, but it's about delivering her what she wants and needs.
And what do you find for yourself that you're getting out of this process of building this community personally from?
Oh no, it's amazing. I mean, it's incredibly hard work. I mean, we work so hard. I'm on a plane every single week. It's a lot. Yeah. But then there'll be a moment in every day where we genuinely feel proud about what we're doing, what we've done, what more there is to do. And so much of my work life over the last 25 years has been being in rooms full of men. Many of them awesome, some of them not so much. Yeah. And now that my life is this building that we imagine, these buildings that we imagine, this online community, where there are just smart-minded, kick-ass, ambitious women around us all day, every day. And it's not to lie. We've created the world that we always wanted and never had.
Amazing. And I'm so pleased you used the A word, ambition, because some people treat it, especially when talking about women, as a 4-letter word, and I think we need to reclaim it, because it's, it doesn't need to, well, it's not a bad thing, and ambition is just a strong desire, and why shouldn't us women have it as well? I guess just wrapping up on some thoughts about you, again, you personally. Clearly you've done so much in your career, so much in service of others, and this idea of profit and impact, combining the two. When you sort of look maybe 20, 30 years into the future, where do you see yourself at that point? What do you think will be keeping you excited and to
Yeah.
get out of bed every day then?
Gosh, I don't know. I keep telling everyone this is the last one in terms of taking something from scratch.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I love investing in other people's businesses, not just in terms of money, but helping them out. And I imagine after this one, I'll do a bit more of that. I like the politics stuff that I do, that I've done. I'm on the board, Sadiq Khan's business board, and I love London, where I live, and I think encouraging entrepreneurship and making sure that London remains at the forefront globally as a business centre is really important.
Yeah.
I've got 2 budding entrepreneurs as kids. That's sort of fun to sort of think about that and them and how I can support them and what that might look like. I mean, I'm never someone who's struggling for things to do.
Clearly
So
not.
I'm sure that there'll be lots of new adventures to be had.
Fair enough. And actually, on that point, I mean, would you consider yourself a planner? Were you the type of person who would set out a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan and then sort of execute towards it, or again, was it the idea of having a general idea and then sort of being flexible in the approach?
A bit of both. So my businesses, I can see what the life cycle looks like because I'm a one-trick pony in the sense that I build a business for an exit. And there are lots of entrepreneurs that I know and admire enormously who have been at the same thing for 20 years, and that's just not me. So in that sense, there's a sort of cadence to life. But do I know quite where it's going to go? No. So I think it's about both. I like structure. I like structuring the day with all of my travel. I'm very sort of autistic about I have to be on the same plane at the same time. I need all of that. I need routine. Yeah. But I think you need to be really open to where the world and where opportunity is going to take you. And I think being able to meet Anna at a party and then a year later to have co-founded something that, that's life. That's what's amazing about life.
I love that.
You never know who you're going to be.
And that's the thing, right? You have to be open to the opportunities, and that's wonderful. Well, very quickly, before we let you go, just a few quick, maybe some fun tidbits or insights into you, Debbie, as a person. What are you reading right now? What's on your bedside table?
I am reading Olive again. I read Olive Kettridge by Elizabeth Stroud. They're amazing books, and you should absolutely read them. And Olive is a woman looking back on her life, was a school teacher, very strong, prickly personality. She's engaged in every story, but it's a story of her community. It's very sort of moving, and it's about ageing, actually, and what that means for life and looking back on life. So I would read those 2. I read a lot of fiction, and also because I'm on the board of the Women's Prize. Yes. I read them a lot. So I don't read bar our own, and very occasionally business books, but I've always got a book on there. Great.
Excellent. And tell us a little bit about your boxing routine.
So I do something every day, I always have done. I do 2 different things. I either train at the AllBright because we have a strength training studio, which is partnership with Spiralist on the 2nd floor here. Or I go to a place called BXR, which is a boxing gym in Marylebone. And I go first thing in the morning, and I have to put everything out the night before and pack my dresses and my heels, and I go with Richard, my other half, and it's the sort of thing that we do together. Great.
And last question. What are 2 things on your bucket list, would you say, that you're happy to share?
What's on the bucket list? We just had an amazing trip to Langkawi in Malaysia that had been on the bucket list for a while. Remains on the bucket list to go back. I think with the children are just getting to a stage now where travelling with them is fun. I'd like to take them to Japan. I'd like to take them to places in India that are really culturally different, and it's just not easy to do that when they're small. So I feel like we're just entering a time where we can go on adventures with them, and I've always taken them with me for work. We relocated to LA in the summer when we were in the club, so more time and adventures with them.
Oh, lovely. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for sharing this beautiful space and for creating the AllBright, and to Anna as well. As a member, it is exactly what you guys set out to deliver. It's an amazing community. It's an amazing physical space, along with all of the great bonuses of the online community. So thank you for everything you guys are doing. And thank you again for being here on the Entrepreneur Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Entrepreneur Podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you, and if you liked what you heard, please subscribe so you can get updates every time we've got a fantastic new founder interview for you. Thanks for joining us, and please come find us online at www.entrepreneur.co.uk.